we had previously discussed and want to review, generally just things that people have been curious about. So to get started, our topics today, I'm going to touch again on sorting trash because I think I might have scared people, making it sound like a boogeyman. It kind of is, but I'll explain it more so that it's not so unfamiliar once you actually get there. And then we'll talk about convenience stores. That is in my opinion, the holy grail of Japan. That's the go-to. So we'll get some useful information there. And while we're talking about stores, we'll go over some simple shopping words. That's going to be like the majority of what's on the worksheet there. And then some November holidays. So we've been talking about holidays every lesson here. This time we have two. And then we'll finish up with some study material, which is, I believe, the other worksheet, and we'll have a PDF version with the links and everything there. We'll go into more detail afterwards. Let's see. So to start with the sorting trash, hopefully we can quell your fears. I did want to say, basically, for people that live in Japan, like foreigners moving to Japan, there is generally like this fear or anxiety over sorting trash, like residentially, when you actually live in Japan. And it just comes from what we've talked about before, like a strict adherence to rules generally. So like if either you're a foreigner moving into Japan or a Japanese person getting like a new foreigner neighbor, there might be some fear that, oh, they won't know how to follow the rules for the trash. And, a lot of cities in Japan are so densely packed that, your neighbor's trash does like matter to you. Whereas I'm sure here, you don't think about your neighbor's trash, never even see it, besides when it's on the curb. But we'll talk about that a little bit, just because it's different in the system that we have here in some ways. Luckily, for the visitors, obviously, if you're just traveling, it's not so complicated. You don't have to worry about all that. And we'll go over the ways that you'll have to interact with it. Excuse me, just on the shorter time scale. So first I wanted to go over residential. So it has sorting your trash in Japan has a reputation of being complicated, you could say overcomplicated, and it's a common worry for new foreigners moving in and for their Japanese neighbors. And like I said, cities are really dense, so it matters to you what your neighbor is doing with their trash, especially when you see some of these pictures, how they're organized, how the system works. So the biggest issues of like sorting, scheduling, and then securing the trash are all factors that people have anxiety over when they're in Japan. So if you ever plan on living there or think about it or dream about it, just know that this is the dark side that you have to worry about, is the getting this right and trying not to make your neighbors mad. So generally there's like specific rules for just about every kind of trash, and you get used to those, but anything different ends up being a huge headache. So for instance, let me see, there's I'm sure here, like if you have a recycling bin at your house, you know what can go in the recycling bin and what can't, and then what days the recycling comes. There's also like the leaves day, the water day, and stuff like that. But Japan just likes to take that up a few notches. And a lot of people think, oh, do we really have to do all this? But it works for them, so it's best to just follow along. For instance, things like milk cartons. Cartons are the usual way that people get milk in Japan, not so much like the plastic gallons. And every milk carton has a very specific way that you have to cut it. So you have to rinse them out, cut it up, tie with twine in stacks, and then put them out in a specific place at a specific time. And that's just milk cartons, and they're usually like 1 liter or half a liter. So you go through a lot, compared to like a gallon. Things like plastic bottles have to be rinsed, take the label off, take the cap off separately. Cap is one kind of plastic, bottle is a different kind of plastic, separate all of that. If you have if you have a broken glass, broken light bulb, something like that, you just throw it in the trash can. No, you have to get a box, put it in that box, wrap the box in tape, and then write in Japanese, broken, which was so stressful for me to try to make it like legible for the garbage man to be like, oh, it's broken, and not just I'm putting like someone's mail in the trash or something. So we can see here are some examples of the different trash systems in Japan. So not it's very unusual for people to have like a big bin. The trash trucks don't like come and have the big arm that picks up bins. So there's a few different like residential neighborhood systems here. Some like apartment buildings might have one big trash thing, trash can, bin, and all the trash has to be, you know, in its own bag. And then you can see here a kind of chart on it. It would be similar to that, but every city and town will have their own. And you're going to be very lucky if you get one in English. So if you're just going off of the pictures and maybe you can read days of the week, it might be a struggle. And this one, you can see the days of the week, it just kind of lists everything. You would usually circle or like highlight which one is the one that applies to you.
Okay, so since the majority of us will not be residential,
Yeah,
in our hotels, would we have to worry about this?
I don't think so. At most at your hotels, you might see something like this. Just, you know, a hallway, a corner, a closet with a bunch where you have the option to throw away things if you want to separate them. You know, your plastic bottles from your food trash, from paper and stuff like that. But you can see it just walking around Japan, you'll see all these different things. You might think, oh, Japan's supposed to be clean. Why is there like a big pile of trash? Well, it's a big pile of trash. The blue net and these little black and white dividers, plastic poles kind of show like this is the place where trash goes, and it's the only place where trash will go. So you will see the whole neighborhood looking really clean, and then just a pile of trash in the corner. You think that doesn't seem right, but you know, it's the system. The system works, so you can trust it. Again, with like the blue tarp, that's always the go-to. It's mostly like keep crows, cats, animals away. The crows are so aggressive in Japan. You might notice that when you're there. So it's necessary. They will get into it if you give them the chance. In other places, they'll go with like a metal box if they're worried about bears or boars, but that's, you know, more in the mountains. You don't have to worry about that. And yeah, you can just see from this chart, like there's so many categories, and each one has its own bag. Each one has its own day specifically. You have to separate them like in specific ways. And a lot of people in Japan will end up having like 3 or 4 different trash cans in their house. Whereas, you know, we might have just one big one or a big one and then recycling, stuff like that. So it'd be pretty normal for a Japanese household to have like the big bag for burnable, a bag for plastic, bag for recyclable plastic, which is like different, like the PET bottles, which we'll go into. That's basically plastic drinking bottles, which is like its own kind of category. And then paper products, other recycling, cans, different kinds of cans. You can't put every kind of metal container together. And then like, you know, the household stuff is like one-offs. But just to go into detail, you can see it's a little bit more complex if, like me personally, I'm just used to everything goes in the trash. There's just one trash, everything goes in the trash. You take it out to the curb. So this took some getting used to. I was pretty lucky in my building where they had dedicated trash, like kind of like this, but there were 3, and one was always for your like burnable garbage, which is what you kind of get the most of throughout the week. So if I'm, you know, I was lucky, I could just put that out any day of the week and not worry about it. But if you only have one, you have to put the right trash in there on the right day, or your neighbors will be pissed. There are, you know, people, I've heard stories of, you know, little old ladies just standing there waiting for the foreigner to come and say like, I know this is you, because everybody else can read the sign. So I know this is you. And they'll just make you take your trash back into your house. And you know, Japanese apartments or houses don't have, they're not usually very big. So if you mess up, you miss a day, you might end up, you know, having your trash in your house, just sitting there in some corner for another week, sometimes another month, if you see like the more rare items. And for something big, you know, you got a broken bicycle or, I don't know, an ironing board, stuff like that, kettle. Well, actually even bigger things. I think there's a dimension that's like diagonal by 45 centimeters or something. If it's that big or larger, you have to pay for a sticker to put on it and then schedule a pickup for it, even if it's something that you think fits in the trash can. So that's just a whole nother level of extra steps to take. When I was moving out, I was moving out of my apartment with like 4 other teachers at the time. So our city, we worked for the city, so the school board and like the city all worked together. They just brought us like a pickup truck and said, throw all your trash in there. We'll get it figured out. Like we don't want to piss off the whole building. We don't want to make the neighborhood mad. So just throw all your trash in there. They had to rent like a little dump truck for us. It's like it's too much of a hassle to try to deal with this. But luckily you won't have to deal with that unless you eventually choose to go to Japan longer term. But just know it's waiting for you. Out and about, so more like visitor things. Public trash cans, as I said, can be a bit rare, but convenience stores are a great go-to for that. Other places include train stations. They will generally have some trash cans, and I'll show you some examples of that because they don't always have English. And then larger stores like grocery stores are pretty good for having places in front. It might be harder to find in Tokyo, but if you're in smaller places or just a little bit out of like the bigger city blocks, you might be able to find that if you really have been dragging your, your 10 bottles of water for so long, you just couldn't find a convenience store or something. Another note is vending machines will generally always have like a little bin next to it for the bottles and cans that they sell. So that's a relief. I feel like, especially going in the summer, you're going to want to stay hydrated, and that's going to be a big part of what you end up holding on to. So, if you see a vending machine, you can just kind of chuck it all there or wait till you see the next one and throw it away there. Let's see. So when it comes to these trash cans, you will be lucky to find English. I think it might be more likely in Tokyo or kind of larger international branded stores. But for the most part, it helps to kind of know what we're looking at before we get there. So let's see. There are different icons and colors, like every store, every convenience store, every grocery store will have their own kind of trash can, which will generally match throughout the whole country, but they'll have different ones from each other, and they kind of have different icons and different colors, so you won't really know just like going off of one. And if you're staying at a hotel, your room will probably just have one trash can where you can throw everything. But obviously, if you are out a long day and you go to the convenience store, you grab a snack here and there, you might end up with a lot of little bits of trash that you don't want to keep stuffing in your pockets or putting in a purse, something like that. So it helps to kind of know what you can do while you're out. Okay, yeah, that a last resort, basically. If you can't figure out, you're like, okay, I don't know, I'll just throw it away there. So here are a few different examples. This is the most common in train stations. So luckily, they've got a clear front so you can see what trash is already in there. Just take a guess off of that. And the colors help a bit. So starting with the green, I did not want down. Starting with the green, here, this one, it specifically says newspapers first, and then kind of like other paper waste. So you can see that's what's in there. Newspaper, paper waste, it's recyclable papers. So if you've got like a food wrapper that was paper and it's maybe got a lot of sauce or something on it, some oil dripped on it, that wouldn't really go there because you wouldn't consider that recyclable. Like pizza boxes not recyclable because all the grease. But going on with the recyclable theme, this green here says pet bottle, and that will be on your sheet somewhere near the top. So the pet bottle, like I said, is your plastic drink containers. You can see in here they've got, green tea, water bottles, Pocari Sweat, more green tea, and then. So generally, if you were at home and you had to throw these away, you would want to peel off the plastic, separate the cap from the rest of the thing. But for these, you're fine. It's the public ones don't expect you to do all of that, so you can just throw them there in the bin. That was a bad choice of words because this next one is called can and bin. So can, luckily enough, means can. So you got your sodas, coffees, cold drinks, hot drinks, all that will come in a can from the vending machine or the convenience store, and those can go in here. And it's just one hole for both because they go in the same bag. The bin is glass bottles. So if you end up, there are like little vitamin drinks, things like that at a convenience store. Sometimes energy drinks will come in a little glass bottle, like a few inches tall. And that is kind of like a popular thing you can try if you know you need a quick up of energy. They say it tastes like Red Bull, but you know, it's a lot less and it's a lot stronger. So maybe worth a try. So yeah, you got your PET bottles, can, bin, and then this one just says Sonohoka no Gomi, all other trash. So basically the red signifies that this is burnable trash. If you've got non-recyclable plastics, like a plastic wrap that you can't really like melt down or something else, you got, you know, used tissues or anything like that, all other trash goes in here. And that's a good word, gomi. Will be on your worksheet as well. Gomi means trash. So kind of like that's a good one to know if you need to ask somebody, where do I put this? What do I do with this? Gomi means trash. Good one. Let's see this one too. This kind of array here is what you might see more likely. Not so much at a train station or convenience store, but like at a larger store, maybe outside of malls, department stores, and stuff like that. And they've got some, luckily, some English here, so you can kind of make out. And then the red here is saying recycled saremasen. So if you can hear recycled, that's recycle. So these are non-recyclable with the X. And these are recyclable. I would say it's not very common to see like a sign telling you what's recyclable or not, but you know, if you've studied up on your katakana, and then you can kind of tell with the X in the circle, X is no, circle is yes, and you got your clue there. And again, cans and bottles that come together, PET bottle, plastic is completely separate. One thing you might notice is this is like the general guideline of how they separate trash, but sometimes it's just for looks. You'll see like the PET bottles and the cans or the plastics and the burnable separated by like the hole that you put them in, and then they all go into one bag and it all gets thrown to the same place and burned. You know, sometimes it's all for appearances, but it's still good to follow the rules. These two at the bottom are more likely what you'll see at different convenience stores. So this is like the more out and about on the go way of seeing. So this one, you know, it looks like a crumpled piece of paper or something, and it says moyaseru gomi. So gomi, we know it's trash. The moyaseru, it's kind of easy. Well, sometimes they use kanji to show it, which means you just won't be able to read it all because it's a difficult kanji. But this means burnable trash. So it's like this other with the red. So if you see the word gomi on like a label, that's more than likely going to be pointing you to the burnable trash and not the recyclable things. These ones are a little bit easier to tell, the PET bottle with a separate hole, or the caps. So the caps would go in the small one and the bottle will go in the large one. And then you've got your bean and cans. So bottle and can. And kind of the same thing over here. Luckily, this one has a picture of the flame, so you know that's burnable, and then can, bean, and PET bottle. For convenience stores, it will be like a kiosk kind of thing in the corner of near the entrance. Sometimes the coffee machine on top, stuff like that. So you might look around and say, I can't find it, but lower your eyes a bit. Might be hiding as a shelf, disguised as some cabinets there. Okay. So yeah, you can see that the colors don't always match across different places. The pictures all look different, but you know, the katakana can help with the recyclable ones. And then, you know, you're kind of dealing with, is it green for recyclable or is it red for burnable, which is a big help. I don't think any like Japanese person would call you out for throwing something in the wrong one, you know, if you're in a rush or something. But still, it's generally better to just do your best with it. And you can see even sometimes it'll get full, they'll put an extra bag. Sometimes it's piling up and falling onto the floor. So it's not like it's a perfectly clean country everywhere. But you know, if enough people do their best, then it's generally clean for everybody. Okay. So that's trash cans for us. Hopefully that clears it up a bit. If you were nervous about it before. But like I said, out in public, it might be a little bit more rare, and generally people are just expected to carry their trash until they get the next trash can. And it helps keep everything clean. That's why, as you'll see when you're there, so many tourist areas like the temples and everything are just so spotless. It's because everybody does their part. So we've seen some examples of what the trash cans look like in convenience stores. So let's talk about convenience stores. These are truly convenient. This is true convenience. I feel like you think of a 7-Eleven here, or what else is there? Like a quick shop,
The quick mart,
Wawa, yeah, something like
Wawa,
that.
Sheets.
Yeah, Sheets, yeah, Sheets is actually pretty good when the new one, but sometimes convenience stores here are not very convenient and they're not always the nicest place to be. But in Japan, generally, you get a lot higher quality. So the word for convenience store, it's kind of like a shortened one, konbini. Konbini. If you go and you try to kind of katakana the like convenience store, that's not what people say. It's konbini, short and sweet and easy to say. And they're basically everywhere in Japan. Like if you are in a city, you might see two of the same one across the street from each other. So they're really common. Even if you're further out in the countryside, it might be longer stretches between them, but then when you see one, there'll be another one down the road because they just like to stick together like that. And luckily, the kind of level of quality and service that you get between the very city ones and the very country ones are not that different. You'll still have like clean facilities, a good selection. So generally, you don't have to worry. If you see a convenience store, that's like your safe space in Japan. So they've got some useful features. They have a variety of quick, tasty, and affordable food options. Some of them are better than others. We'll talk about that a little bit when we discuss the different ones that they have. They'll have snacks, junk food, hot and cold beverages. You've got your teas, your waters, stuff like that. So it's always good for a quick meal. And they really do have some good options. There's also other things like ATMs, printers, fax machines. I don't know if that'll be useful, but Japan loves fax machines. They still like brag about that as like a useful amenity. I don't know how useful it is. Many stores will have free Wi-Fi, so that's helpful in a pinch, and clean toilets. So obviously that's good. And a public toilet here, I have that stall that you can the breeze comes right in. But once in Japan, it's a solid door, usually just a single stall with a solid door. So like I said, sometimes it's a safe space for you.
It's not like Europe where you have to pay.
No, yeah, they'll be free. I don't think there's any pay ones. Like even those, if you've seen it was on the news a while ago, like the ones in I think Tokyo, like Shinjuku area, where it was completely transparent, and then when you go in and lock the door, it turns opaque. Even those you don't have to pay for. Although I think they're fully opaque now. They're not as fancy. They just decided to turn off that feature because people were like not happy with it. I don't think it ever like broke and embarrassed anybody, but it's kind of a gimmick. Yeah.
I have read that sometimes in public toilets, there won't be any soap and there won't be anything to dry your hands on.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Soap and like paper towels are very rare. Even at like the schools that I would teach at, there would often not be soap in the bathrooms. I just thought that's so weird. Even during COVID times, don't understand. Hand sanitizer everywhere, but no soap, and also no towels. So you got a lot of wet hands, which I think we talked about last year. But that's a good reason to have your hand sanitizer and your kind of hand towel that you can pick up like at convenience stores or like a Daiso, like a dollar store.
Is it like less common for them to wash their hands after they go? Or is it just expected for you to bring your own stuff?
I think that people expect you to wash your hands. I just think they're okay with having wet hands. The soap thing, I don't know. They should really have soap. But, I guess it's just more upkeep and they don't want to do that. I don't think I've ever seen anyone like carry their own soap into a bathroom. That would be weird. I will say convenience stores are better for that, but if you are in like a park, it'll be kind of bare bones. Like it'll still have the nice stall with the door all the way up and down, but you run into no soap. So for that reason, yeah, the hand sanitizer and like a hand towel will be a big help there.
Okay, so bring hand soaps.
I'm wondering, like, how would you even bring hand soap? Do they sell small containers of hand soap, or do you just make your own?
You can make your own.
Found some on Amazon and they do this cute little pastel teddy bear shaped thing. And they're like a single sheet is like enough soap for one hand washing.
I guess,
So I'm
yeah,
getting
I've seen
those.
those, yeah,
I'm thinking of the TSA because they're not liquid.
yeah, like the
so
dissolvable soap.
could we do
sheets.
like, bars, small bars of soap? Can we
think so.
travel with,
Well, you could, but you'd have to,
yeah, so there you go.
I just think you'd have to carry around like a wet bar of soap there.
Well, that's what Ziplocs are for.
It's true, it's true, it's possible, anything is possible to put your mind to it. But convenience stores will be better for that, they usually have soap. If they don't, walk right out of the bathroom, buy soap, and then go back and wash it.
did a quick search and it looks like it's just cost efficient for them not to provide the services, so they
Yeah.
effectively bring it up.
That makes sense. If they don't have paper towels, they don't need a trash can either, and then you don't need someone going around to like pick it up. Also, when you give someone a trash can, you don't know what they're gonna put in it. So it's better to just not give trash cans. You know, for, I could see that from the like the city, small city government kind of perspective. They don't want to deal with all that. Let's see, so there are several big brands of convenience stores. And because of this, they're like, because there's competition, there's so many brands, you'll see them all over the place. You don't have to worry, for the most part, about finding one. I think if you go down any road in Japan long enough, you'll run into one. So either do that or turn around, you'll find one goes the other way. I want to go over the big ones, the big brands you might have heard of: 7-Eleven, Family Mart, and Lawson. Those are the big three. And for the most part, people have like their favorites. But I will say they all have different things that are better than the other. There's no one convenience store that's like the king of all convenience stores. They've got their differences. And some of the smaller ones that you might see, and honestly, when I see the smaller ones, I get more excited because you know, you just get so used to a 7-Eleven, a Family Mart, Lawson, you're there 3 times a day. When you see a mini stop or a daily Yamazaki or Poplar, those are just a treat. Sometimes it's more like when you're really out in the boonies, you'll see a daily Yamazaki and you're like, let's see what they sell here. Oh, like a whole fish or something. You know, they can be a bit more rural, but generally they're all quite good. I think 7-Eleven is kind of known for having better drink selections and better like microwavable meals. Family Mart is known for having better like fresh and fried food. Lawson is very good. Lawson has, I think, better ice creams and treats and snacks like that. So kind of depending on what you like, you know, I hope you visit all of the different ones and kind of pick your favorite there. I will also say, oh, I didn't even wear them today, but Family Mart has cool socks that you can have. They have like their little colors. And for some reason, it's like a trend to get the Family Mart socks in Japan. So I think even the other like 7-Eleven and Lawson copied them because they're like, why do people like the socks so much? It just became like an internet thing. But yeah, the Konbini socks, kind of a big deal if you see them.
It's a trend.
Yeah, it was a trend for a while, and I think it kind of still is. People get excited for that. I didn't buy one though because of the hype. It's like, I need the socks. So yes, convenience stores are so convenient. They're a big part of just like the daily life in Japan. I think even as a visitor, you're going to be going to them a lot. Are there any questions about convenience stores?
What are the hours that they're open? Are they closed at all?
Ooh, for the most part, like 7-Elevens and Lawson, I think those two are more known for being 24 hours, so you'll get good luck with those. I think Family Mart sometimes close like if they're, you know, sometimes you'll see a convenience store that's inside something else like a train station, things like that, and those might close down because they don't have as much traffic when the trains aren't running and stuff like that. But if you're just out in a city block and you see one, in the more populated areas, they like to be 24 hours. So you don't have to worry about that. I wouldn't say the same, the 3 smaller ones like Mini Stop, Daily Yamazaki, and Poplar. Those kind of, you know, just peak business hours, breakfast to like 9 or 10. Some things in Japan close very early, but luckily the convenience stores don't. So that's a good one. As you know, like on a late night. Okay. So let's say you are at a convenience store and you want to buy something. let's go over some shopping words. So these are gonna be some of the big ones there on your sheets. The first one, very good word to know. Sumimasen. Sumimasen is excuse me. And it's pretty close to excuse me. You can use it bumping into somebody, get through a crowd, anything like that. But if you have a question, you want to talk to the staff, a good way to start is just sumimasen, way to get somebody's attention. And it's polite. There's no kind of difference in being formal or casual with it. Sumimasen, it's good no matter what. So excuse me. And let's say follow-up question, you want to ask how much is something you can say. So you ask somebody, hello, how much is this? Sumimasen, and it's ikura desu ka? Ikura desu ka? And the important part there is the ka at the end poses it as a question. That particle or article makes your sentence into a question. So you kind of put those together. Sumimasen, ikura desu ka? If you're holding something, making it obvious what you're talking about. That is something about Japanese is you don't always have to specifically say the subject. So if you're asking about the limited edition, onigiri, you don't have to do a whole name to say what it is. You could just hold it up and they'll know. Luckily. But if you do want to be more specific, we have these kind of pointer words that depend on distance from speaker and listener. So we have kore, sore, and are. This, meaning basically something that is close to you, maybe in your hand or right in front of you. Sore, so that, something a little bit further away, could be, pointing distance or shelf somewhere close. And are would be something that even further away. So for instance, I could say kore, this pen. This would be kore. I was saying sore, like discussing something on the street, on the screen. I could say like, this word sore. And if I was saying something up on the shelf, out of reach and kind of further away or across the room, are, as long as it's kind of clear what you're pointing at.
Kore.
So if you put these all together, you could say sumimasen, kore ikura desu ka? And they'll know you're asking the price of the pen. So that's quite useful. At a shop, obviously, convenience stores, they might just have the price right in front of you. But if you're going for like smaller artisan shops or different stores that are just kind of run by one person and not some big company, these are helpful just to start. What do I say? Like, if it's a really small shop, sometimes they'll be afraid to or nervous of a foreigner coming in and they're like, oh, I don't know, what if they ask questions and stuff. But if you start with some simple Japanese like that, then they'll be a lot more comfortable with helping you. So it's useful for that.
Kore, sore, are.
See. There are other versions of the kore sore are if you know the noun of what you're talking about, like of the subject. So for instance, pen in Japanese is pen. So you could say it would be kono instead of kore. It kind of changes.
Kono pen.
Yeah, kono pen. So I'm talking about this pen. And I said pen because you couldn't say kore pen. It doesn't work that way. But kono signifies that you're going to state what the object is afterwards. So like the same as kore, sore, are, kono, sono, no. That helps. That's kind of a pattern you might notice in other things, the same as here, there, and over there. We can talk about those later.
So sono and ano?
Yes, yeah, sono, yeah. Kore, kono, sore, sono, are, ano. That one's helpful to be more specific when you build up your vocabulary and grammar. You can know the Japanese noun that you're talking about. Okay, another one it's good, it's a bit longer, is onegai shimasu. Onegai shimasu. And that means please. So There's kind of two please, and I'll just put the next one as well, so we can discuss the difference. Is kudasai. Kudasai is also please, but it's kind of got a bit more of the please give me. You'd use it more in that context. So if you were, let's say at a convenience store, got your green tea, your onigiri, you put it on the counter, you could say, kore onegai shimasu. Kore onegai shimasu. Just this, please. Nice to, has a chance to practice Japanese and just have a little conversation. Maybe you'll strike up a conversation with shopkeep. For some reason, I've had good luck with friendly convenience store workers. They'll be like, "Oh, where are you from?" Like they'll just bust out some good English, but it helps if you to meet them halfway with some Japanese. Sometimes it can be quite talkative. That's good. So yeah, onegai shimasu and kudasai, they're used in different places. Well, they're used in different contexts, but they both mean please. And it's not so much of a big deal if you say one instead of the other, because they're both a polite way of asking. Well, kudasai more so a polite way for asking, and then onegai shimasu kind of is, but it's less implied that you're asking for something. We'll go through some examples.
So it's like when you say yes, please type thing.
Yeah,
Onegai
so
shimasu.
onegai shimasu. Yeah, it can be used as just a reply saying yes if someone asks you a question, which I'll go to on the next screen. But basically, they'll, if you say kore onegai shimasu and they ask you a follow-up, if you know what they're saying, you can formulate a good answer. But if you don't, that's a good just go to blanket response. Onegai shimasu. Just yes, please, whatever you just said, please. And then you usually get what you want. Let's see.
Onegai shimasu. Kudasai.
Yes.
No, I thought it was the other way.
Like switch that. Onegai shimasu is more like asking for something.
Oh, gosh, like, please do me this favor, or it's super polite. Whereas kudasai, I wouldn't, in the way that I use it, I wouldn't say, please give me, like.
Mhm.
It's more like a request. Or
I think it's a good way to put it. Yeah, kudasai is like a request word. You might see signs, like in public, saying like, "Don't stand here," and they'll say kudasai. They won't say onegai shimasu because that's like extra polite, and a sign doesn't have to be so polite to you. But yeah, it's requesting, "Don't stand here."
Then it just people next to it, fun.
Mm.
Like I said. Give me your hand.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a good point. Onegai shimasu can kind of stand as its own word alone, and kudasai could go together with your request, command, kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah, like, please sit down. It's kind of like a request, but it can be a command. That might come more down to the tone of voice. Yeah.
I know, whenever there's like a tea ceremony, there's a point at which you could ask for another cup of tea. But if the person who's there as a guest says something like, kudasai, it means please finish, or kudasai, they say please finish, and that gives the host the key to, okay, I'm not gonna make another one, I'm just gonna finish up. And then you say, I'll finish.
Right. Yeah. So it's like a request. It's like,
So it's a
please.
request that is polite enough for tea ceremony, and that's pretty polite.
Right. Yeah.
I guess it's.
Yeah. They're both polite. I think kudasai is like you will be polite if you say it. If you don't say it and you're just giving a command like that, it's conjugated in a different way and it's just a lot more direct. But if you go to kudasai, you're going to be at least the bare minimum of polite. Like nobody will consider it rude like that. Like if you just said suate, that's just sit down. That's a command. But suate kudasai is like please sit down. And you could say please sit down, but it's still putting on that politeness with that. So let's say you've got I'm gonna change it from right here now. You've got a bento box, you've got your lunch. This one looks delicious, and you've got your green tea. Some questions that you might get at a store, and for like visitors and beginners, these are very scary because they say them fast. And it's like a sentence, you've got a full sentence now that you're dealing with. But that's why I practice. So first one might be, do you need a bag? Do you need a bag? So the word for bag is fukuro, Fukuro, fukuro. And then you see here the ball, which is kind of an article pointing towards the subject. So they're just clarifying the fukuro, the bag that they're talking about. And the verb, conjugated verb for need is irimasu, and then ka next to the question. So fukuro o irimasu ka means, do you need a bag? Fukuro o irimasu ka. Sometimes it's easier just to listen out the beginning of that sentence. Yeah, and then you can just say, yeah. And we'll go over some other responses here in a second, but you know, if they're speaking at you, you know, there's other sounds going on, the ding dong of the door opening, stuff like that. And you just hear like fukuro irimasu ka. Maybe the only part you really picked up was like those consonants at the beginning, like fukuro. It stands out a little bit more than the jumbled conjugation of verbs at the end. So if you hear that, you know, they're talking about bag. You might also get something like when they're talking about chopsticks, do you need chopsticks? Like ohashi irimasu ka? Hashi is the word for chopstick. That's a good one to know. If it's something that you wouldn't eat with the chopstick, like it's sometimes they have what would it be, like, well, soups, for instance, or something like that. Spoon and fork are just kind of katakana. Spoon, fork, boku. So you can kind of hear those out and you'll know what they're asking. And so the subject here of the sentence might change around, but the irimasu ka, they're asking if you need something. And another one, this is a bit a tongue twister, and this intimidates people. Would you like it heated? So if you get like a bento box, something that can be heated up in the microwave, they'll do that for you at the convenience store. And they'll ask, atatame ka? Atatame ka? It's just that double and all the vowels and the consonants. You know, it's kind of like a meme to mess it up when you try to like give them a proper response, like yes, please microwave it. Like they end up saying like atatame just onegai shimasu. That's a good one to go. Yes, please. And if you want to, you know, step up that response a little bit more, so they ask atatamasu ka, then we've got yes and no. Yes would be hai, H-A-I, hai. So fukuro irimasu ka? Hai, onegai shimasu. Atatamasu ka? Hai, onegai shimasu. And then no would be iie, iie. Like textbooks will say that that's more impolite way to say no, because it's a direct no, which Japanese speakers generally try to avoid. So that's like it's like a strong no. And if someone says like, do you need a bag? Do you just go no? You might be like, no, I'm all right. That's fine. So a good one to use there is daijobu. Daijobu means fine. It means okay. And this is a good one where luckily the body language between cultures does help. If they say fukuro irimasu ka, do you need a bag? And you go daijobu, yes. Shake your head yes. Then you're saying, yeah, okay. Yeah. If you put your hand up, say daijobu desu, then they know you don't want it. So it's kind of like, I don't know, can we have something in English like that? Like it's like whichever way you say it doesn't matter, as long as your body language is saying the right thing.
Yeah.
Something like that, right? Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah. Something like that.
Yes, but no.
But yeah, no, yeah, that's a classic. But
Yeah.
daijobu is good for that. If you really, that's a good one to know. If all you could think of at the time is your body language, you go daijobu, daijobu. That's fine. I don't need it. Or daijobu. Yeah, I do want it. So hai and iie, daijobu. If you say iie, you know, it's not going to be like you just slapped him in the face. It's not so rude. It's just like a direct no. But obviously, if you're like a convenience store worker, you're seeing 1,000 people a day. You don't really care about one interaction. So You're not gonna insult somebody if you say no, but it's just good.
Maybe,
Maybe.
unless the
Someone will be
person's having a bad day.
Yeah. You get a bad day, but hopefully not. Let's see. Oh, and this is a great one to know. If you're just a beginner at Japanese. I don't understand. Wakarimasen. Wakarimasen. So this is the verb for understand is wakaru and conjugated to the negative present tense. Wakarimasen. I don't
Wakarimasen.
understand. And hopefully sometimes, somebody asks you a question and you reply with wakarimasen, you'll get different responses. You might get someone try to say it in English or just like a slowed down version of what they asked again, repeat the question, something like that. So it's really helpful if you're just fully lost with what somebody asked you. And it's not impolite or anything to just say, I don't understand. And hopefully you'll get a second chance to hear it out and answer. And
Wakarimasen.
in the best case, they might be perfectly fluent in English and you go from there. Okay. So those are kind of our basic shopping words. I think next time we're talking about money, numbers, and like do some like speaking practice with different examples. But these are the basic ones. If you don't want to deal with all of that, just you can buy something and make it out of that situation. That hasn't done too much damage with these. That's quite useful.
Yeah, one more on that page.
Okay.
There you go.
And once you're done, you've gotten what you want, you can do, this is kind of like a two-parter. There's arigato, that means thank you. And then to make it more polite, arigato gozaimasu. Arigato gozaimasu. So it's thank you, and then the gozaimasu is like a polite amplifier. So it's thank you very much. And that's useful. And it's good for kind of every situation, except for when you're done eating food. But every other situation when you're saying, like, thank you very much, you could say it, to someone helping you at a store, someone helping you at a train station. It's good. It's a good blanket thank you. Yeah.
So instead of saying gozaimasu, could you add domo to and that would mean about the same thing?
Yeah, I think if you put it in the front, like domo arigato, you can combine all three and say domo arigato gozaimasu. That's you're being extra polite. Depends how much gratitude you want to display there.
What does the moment?
Domo is also just like a thanks. It's like thanks. It's like you could shorten it. If you only said domo, it's just like, oh, thanks for that.
Maybe we just almost more important.
I think so, yeah. Yeah, like once that's kind of a thing is like beginners at Japanese will just a lot of people will speak like just the textbook thing, and the textbook says like say arigato gozaimasu. But once you get comfortable, you change from watashi to some other different words like boku, ore. You might start saying domo instead of arigato gozaimasu, things like that. But you can play with it your own style, speak how you want. Okay.
So with answering PA, like if I ask, if you need that, and like you said, EA would be like kind of punching.
Yeah, it's like a just no.
Right. But you could also be like, EA, I joke, like.
That's a good
"No,
point.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
And then I used to always say like, EA, irimasen,
Yeah.
or like, iramasen.
Yeah, so that would be answering by conjugating the verb for need to the negative. Like we saw here, the wakarimasen, you could say irimasen, so I don't need it. And obviously, yeah, the ie and the daijobu together
Together,
softens the no.
yeah.
Ie daijobu.
So it's a good thing to kind of, to use those two in combination. I think that, you still get your point across, so you're being polite.
Yes. Yeah.
I've read that sometimes in certain streets that will offer you something like try to hand you things, like candy food, they offer you or tissues or something. If you really, really don't want it, is that one time you can say,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, if they're being very persistent, for the most part, you know, kind of like in any big city, you can just not look at them and keep walking. And it's about as polite. If someone's just trying to hand you something on the street, you know, the politeness is kind of over at that point, because they're just trying to shove something in your hand. Sometimes you get like outside of train stations or shopping places, some busier shopping streets, people will like give you flyers, give you packs of tissues with like their advertisement on it. Sometimes you want a bag of tissues, like a little, you know, like the to go, it's just a few tissues. Sometimes when you want it, you just take it, no strings attached, you can just take it, keep walking. Because they will just try to give it to you. Sometimes like outside of train stations and maybe parks, you'll see like religious organizations trying to recruit people. They usually have like a picture of Mount Fuji. It's, you know, it's a religious symbol, like on a newspaper or a book or something. So you can kind of stay away from someone. And if they're being very persistent, just sit and eat it, keep walking. I think, you know, generally don't talk to foreigners so much, but I think I've had people just like come up, try to get me to go to their church. And it's a bit culty, but you know, now you know, strong no, I'm fine, yeah, no, thank you. Just keep walking. I think generally that they're kind of cracking down on that now, around the country in Japan. So hopefully you won't have to interact with that. Yeah, those are good. And then let's see what we have next. Oh, okay. Any more questions on those before we go? Talk about holidays. If you think of any other question, you want like a review next time, that on your post-it notes, not post-it notes, index cards, you know, write something down, or if you have a topic that you want to discuss next time as well. Start, yeah.
is arigato gozaimashita. Thank you for something that the person already did for you.
Mhm.
So could you say arigato gozaimashita to maybe the hotel person as they're leaving?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like, I think like if you were at a convenience store and they just gave you your thing, it's not so past tense that you would say like, arigatou gozaimashita. But for instance, yeah, if it was, you know, like the tour guides or the hotel staff that you've been staying at for some time now, even bus drivers because they've completed the drive, something like that, you could do arigatou gozaimashita. And that is just conjugating in the past tense, like thank you for this previous thing. Instead of just saying thank you, it's like thank you for that thing you did for that time. Thanks. That's a good point. Yeah, did you have a question?
Well, and just another thought on that. I looked at it and didn't read it, I read it too fast, but as I was telling you, and, like, Daijoubu desu, also being like, are you okay?
Yeah, that's a good one. You might get that one if you're looking particularly lost or confused. So daijobu means okay. Daijobu desu is turning it into like a proper sentence, just by adding the desu there at the end. And the ka makes it a question. So if somebody goes up to you and says daijobu desu ka, they're asking, are you okay? So, you know, if you've been standing there looking at the meat buns for 5 minutes and you just can't decide, they're like, are you okay? Like daijobu desu ka? Is he doing all right? So yeah, that's a good one. So yeah, a lot of these words are like basic things that once you kind of study more and expound on them, you can combine into a lot of different useful phrases. So yeah, daijobu is such a good word. Yeah, and then you know the response to daijobu desu ka, you can just say daijobu desu. Yeah, I'm fine. It's fine.
There might
Daijoubu.
that's the question.
Yeah, that's the thing is, you know, there's the way I'm saying it now and reading it, but obviously people are gonna have all their own special quirks, how they ask it. You know, someone at a maid cafe is gonna say it differently than the old man running the bookstore. And it's quite fun to hear all the different ways they even just a word like daijobu is used and changed around. Okay, so let's see, going into the November holidays. So we have two for the month of November national holidays in Japan. One that just passed. I don't know what happened here. King words. Ignore that. So just past now, November 3rd is Culture Day. And Culture Day is used to promote the arts and academic endeavor. So local governments, the cities and wards will have special events. They might have art exhibits, like if there's, for instance, community centers, universities, schools in the area, like special high schools that like focus on certain things. They have festivals. That's where you might see some like traditional dances, traditional foods, very local to that area, because they're celebrating like their local culture, more so than like the whole national culture. And parades. Usually, well, depending on the day of the week this falls, if it's like a Friday, school decides to do cultural day, they might push it to the Saturday or the Sunday. Because at schools, they kind of want to encourage the community to come, parents to be able to go and they'll put like kind of, is it like an open school kind of thing where you can see, you know, what they're doing in art class and see how their lessons go. They might have like a mock lesson. For smaller schools, for like middle school, high school, university, you might see like specific clubs putting on an exhibit, a demonstration, a play, a musical, a song, things like that. Recital, that's what it's called. And generally, it's kind of like we said last time with the Undokai sports days, the students are expected to put in like preparation and effort for it to be a success. So for instance, if you're in, you know, the theater club, they will do several weeks of practice for their play and sometimes have to, you know, make their own costumes, make their own sets and things like that, you know, the higher up schools. And that's generally how it's celebrated at schools. And then, you know, yeah, that's schools, and the city is more like the parades, festivals, so on. I believe there's also a part of it like the emperor, the imperial family gives a reward for someone who is like exceeded in academic pursuits, stuff like that. And the other one is Labor Thanksgiving. So Labor Thanksgiving is a combination of Labor Day and Thanksgiving. So 2 days you get the day off. They shortened it to one, so they don't do 2 days off. And it's also in November. Both of these are holidays created after World War II. So it's kind of like either the occupying American government or the Japanese government after decided that they kind of wanted to step away from whatever holiday existed before. Because they'd usually be surrounding either historically like the emperor and the imperial family or like a Shinto religious holiday. And then post-war Japan kind of became more secular and less imperial. So less so that they kind of change up the holidays. But Labor Thanksgiving is a nice day. So laborers, police officers, there's firefighters, hospital staff, soldiers in the Japan Self-Defense Force, and then like generally factory workers, stuff like that, will get the day off. And specifically for like firefighters, police officers, hospital staff, you know, schools will like get the kids to make nice letters and present them to them, like, you know, give it to them so they can see that they're appreciated that day. And people are encouraged to take the day off, spend time with their families, and relax. So that's nice. Kind of like our Thanksgiving Day, but a little bit more like Labor Day because they don't have so much like big food feast tradition. I believe it does. The original holiday on that day was like a harvest festival holiday, but that's why they kept the Thanksgiving when the Americans kind of decided it's labor, it's Thanksgiving, so we're combining them both. So yeah, those are both. So one's already passed just now, and one coming up at the same time as Thanksgiving. I'm not sure if there's ways that you could kind of participate at home. I guess it's good on Thanksgiving. Say thanks to the working folk and all they do. That would be nice. Let's see. Okay, and then lastly, have study materials. So I believe that other worksheet is covering study materials. I have 6 different ones here, and then we'll send a PDF version of that where you can like click on the different links and check it out.
I think we shared it last year.
I looked back and they were all kind of like separate, so I put
Okay.
them together
Okay,
in this one. So starting off the Genki textbook, that's this textbook. It's like a go-to beginner textbook. This one is Genki 1. And it's what like college courses will use for their entry-level Japanese. And it's generally accepted as like a good beginner textbook. There are other ones that might go more intensely or use different learning styles, but this one is very good. Highly recommended. The book itself costs around $30 new. You could find used versions, but we'll provide a link to just an online version that I believe a university just put publicly available on their website. So that's a good one. There's accompanying workbook and CD in the back, but you can find all of those things online as well. If you want to get proper into studying, oh, here in the back it even tells you there's apps that you can download and everything. So this follows a good progression of increasingly complex Japanese, and it presents them all in the context of little kind of situations.
so there's little tiny scenarios.
Yeah, scenarios, basically. Okay, basically first starting with like a conversation between 1 or 2 or 3 people. So for instance, lesson 2 starts with shopping. And I believe it's Mary wants to buy a watch. So she's asking how much does it cost, which like comparing one to the other, and then purchasing it. And sometimes they'll have multiple scenarios. So I believe the second one, after shopping, Mary goes to a restaurant. So it's kind of 2 different shopping scenarios at once. Good practice to review. And it's also generally what I'm using to style the progression of progress on these lessons here. So then I think the next chapter goes into like numbers and stuff. So purchasing things, telling time, and so on. So that's Genki. Duolingo, you probably all heard of it already. It's like a very popular language learning app, and the Japanese lessons on it are very good. And it's useful because once you get started on like the hiragana and the katakana, you can always use those to review the alphabet, so you've got them down really well. And then they escalate into more difficult subjects. Is a flashcard app. I believe they have a mobile app, but I would recommend using it on the computer because depending on what device you have, they might want to charge you. I don't remember which one, but there's a difference between the Apple and the Android one. And I'll include links to that. You have to get the decks on a separate website, a companion website to the one where you download it. But they're generally very good. And this one has the nice feature of spacing out when you get the cards so that it gives you the one you need to review the most. And things that you know already, you've got it down, it starts giving those to you less. So you really only focus on the things you need to more practice on. Kokubu.com is a website that has, it's like a blog that has a lot of articles on Japanese language, Japanese culture. The 2 charts that we got before with hiragana and katakana, those are from there. So they make a lot of good resources studying. And also just articles talking about like different things in Japan. They'll probably have an article about the holidays. They'll have an article about schools, uniforms, things like that. Anything you might be interested in, if you search on Kokubu. They've been going for a lot of years now, so I think they'll have something insightful there. Quizlet, you know, probably is like the flashcard website. You can find decks. They also do have resources like to match up with the textbook. Either decks made to match the vocabulary of a certain chapter or lesson, or they'll have like the answers to questions that they ask, for instance, in the textbook or on the worksheet, because there are like things here where it says circle the correct answer, what are they talking about, stuff like that. They'll have answers for that. Quizlet.